Hi there, my name is Alex and thank you for clicking on this video. In this edition of the Grammar Workshop series, we're going to be focusing on pronouns. Pronouns, there's a lot of different kinds of pronouns, and sometimes we're using the exact same word for different types of pronouns. So it's a little bit tricky and complicated, but it's very useful to study and to kind of get a full grasp of, because at the end of the day, pronouns are actually here to help us. We can use them as substitutes for other nouns. So let's have a look at the example sentence here on this first slide. Amy was very busy, so she didn't have time to go to the mall. So here, Amy is the noun in the sentence, and she is the pronoun. So basically, this pronoun allows us to not have to say, Amy was very busy, so Amy didn't have time to go to the mall. And if I told you a story about this made-up person, Amy, and I had to keep referring to her, you would get so tired of hearing the name Amy. It would sound so repetitive to your ear. So, pronouns can really help us to kind of avoid having to use the same noun over and over again, and also make our vocabulary sound a little bit wider as well. So, like I said, there's a few different types of pronouns, but we'll go ahead and look at the most common ones and kind of try to think of simple ways to think of them and to remember them. So moving on to the first slide, personal pronouns. You're probably quite familiar with this already, but the tricky thing about personal pronouns is that there are actually two cases, so subject and object. So the difference is really that, for a subject pronoun, we're using it for pretty much the subject of the sentence. And the same with object pronouns, it's the object of the sentence. Like I said before, sometimes the words are the same. So here, if you look at the ones we've listed for you, you can see you, and you can also see it, for example. They both belong to the different categories, subject and object. But, like I said, what is different is whether we're using them as a subject or the object. So let's have a look at the example sentences we have on this slide. So subject, I like your shirt. She is my boss. It is snowing. In each of these three sentences, we're using the personal pronoun as the subject. Then, moving on to object, some more examples. I can see you. I saw him at the grocery store. And can you help me? So in a couple of these sentences, we actually have a subject pronoun and an object pronoun. So I can see you. I saw him at the grocery store. In both of these sentences, I is the subject, and then for the first one, you is the object, and him is the object for the second sentence. So as you can see, sometimes we're using both at the same time, but we're using them for different reasons. It's also important to note that after prepositions, you want to try and place the object after the preposition. So she is waiting for us. Give it to him, give the item to him, or give the document to him. Why were you staring at her? And in each case, we're using the object pronoun after the preposition. So that's about it for the first slide. So let's go ahead and take a look at the second one, antecedents. So these are technically not actually pronouns, but they help us with pronouns. So an antecedent is actually a noun or a noun phrase that you usually mention at the beginning of like a sentence or a story or a talk of some kind. And then we later replace the antecedent with a pronoun. So have a look at the example sentences. Alice said she is almost finished with the document. So pretty much here, the antecedent is Alice and the pronoun is she. So, it kind of, antecedents are kind of very helpful for kind of explaining why we're using the pronoun, if that makes sense. They're kind of setting us up to use the pronoun afterwards. After we've used this antecedent, we can say she as much as we want to refer to Alice, and it's going to sound okay. We might replace she with her at some point as well, for example. So yeah, that's antecedents. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide now, which is possessive pronouns. So you might wonder, why do we have a picture here of a vault? Well, you use a vault to store things, right? To place things you own. So that's kind of what we're doing with possessive pronouns. We're using them to say that someone owns something or that someone is in possession of something. So, for example, if I say that car is mine, it means that car belongs to me, Alex. If we say the watch is hers, it means that watch belongs to her. So maybe we should look after it for her until she gets back, for example. So yeah, they're not too complicated, I don't think. We just say, we just use a possessive pronoun to say that someone owns something. So that one's not too tricky, but the next slide is a little bit trickier. So relative pronouns. So the it's in the word pretty much. They are relative to what we're talking about. But the really handy thing about relative pronouns are that we can use them to present additional information. So we have a few listed here on the slide in a little table for you. There are subject, object, and possessive ones that kind of all fall under the umbrella of relative pronouns. So let's have a look at the final example sentence. My car, which is over 20 years old, still runs very well. Well, it says still runs well there, but you could say very well if you want to. So pretty much here, car is the noun, and which is the relative pronoun. So we're using which to kind of allow us to present additional information afterwards. The additional information is that the car is 20 years old and it still runs well. It doesn't break down or anything like that. So yeah, these are really handy for when we want to present additional information. So yeah, just try to think of it like that, and all of a sudden they're not so difficult. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next one now. So demonstrative pronouns. These are, I think, maybe the most difficult ones for students. I often see demonstrative pronouns getting mixed up. So the best way to think about it is really think about, how close or how far away the item is. So if we think about ones that are nearby, we're going to be using this or these for plural tense. And for items that are far away, we're going to be using probably that or those. Those would be, once again, the plural tense. So take a look at this picture on the slide. I think this picture is really good for demonstrating the point, excuse the pun. But I want you to imagine that you are standing inside of this picture. You are here in this place. Okay, so have a look at where the arrow is. This is where you're standing. So at this point, you are standing on the road pretty much. So you can say, this road is quite long. You can say this because, you are standing on it and you could touch it quite easily, But let's say we wanted to talk about the mountains that we can see in the background. In that case, you might say something like, that mountain would be hard to climb. Or maybe if you're good at mountain climbing, you might say, that mountain would be easy to climb. And, we can't touch the mountain. We're going to have to walk, a little bit of distance before we even get to this mountain and before, we're kind of physically close to it. So that's the best way to, try and think of whether to use this or that. You want to think about, is something nearby or far away? So yeah, that's a good way to think of this. Try to keep that in mind. That's kind of the way I try to always explain it to students. I think that's the best way, in my opinion. But yeah, let's see what the next slide has in store for us. So reflexive and intensive pronouns. These ones are also tricky to explain. Students will often ask me, why is this word in the sentence? The thing is with reflexive and intensive pronouns, let's focus on intensive. We use intensive to kind of emphasize something. So we have a couple of similar sentences here. They booked themselves a hotel. That's reflexive. And intensive, did you yourself book the hotel? So you might ask me, why is yourself in this sentence? Well, it's used to place emphasis. And to explain that more, let's say you and your friends booked a hotel because you were going skiing. Okay, if you told me, Alex, me and my friends booked ourselves a hotel, you're using a reflexive sentence there. But the thing is, I don't know who actually called the hotel and, said, we want to book a hotel. So I might use an intensive sentence and say, did you yourself book the hotel? So that means I want to know, did you actually call them or did one of your friends call them? So you might say, actually, yes, I booked it myself. Or actually, no, my friend Bob booked the hotel. So yeah, this is how we're kind of using the emphasis when we want to kind of find out more about whether or not kind of someone did something themselves or not. So yeah, hopefully that kind of makes it seem a little easier. So we'll take a look at the next slide now. So indefinite pronouns. These are really handy because sometimes we don't know enough information to decide what kind of, for example, personal pronoun to use. So let's say somebody stole something from me. Let's say they stole my cell phone. Maybe they don't want to, it's a bit old now, but let's say they stole my cell phone from me. I could say, someone stole my cell phone. Okay, so if I didn't see the person do it, I have no idea if it was a group of people, if it was a guy who did it or a woman who did it. I have no idea. So I'm using someone because it's indefinite. I don't really know who did it. But if I saw someone steal my cell phone, I might say, oh, Bob stole my cell phone. He's a nasty guy. But if I don't know, I can say someone did it. And a good example sentence here is the one on the bottom of the slide. One does not simply walk into Mordor. So you might have no idea what Mordor is, but it's a place, a fictional place in Lord of the Rings. And, it's a very dangerous place. It's like a volcano pretty much, and there are demons and all kinds of monsters and stuff there. So in the example sentence, one does not simply walk into Mordor. This is something that the actor, Sean Bean, said in the movie, what his character said. And when he is saying this, he is talking to hobbits, to elves, to dwarves. He's talking to all kinds of people. So he doesn't say a dwarf does not simply walk into Mordor, or a human does not simply walk into Mordor. Here he's saying one does not simply walk into Mordor because he's saying, nobody can do that. It doesn't matter if you're male, female, if you're a human or if you're a dwarf in this case, or an elf, you can't do it. So this is why he's saying one does not simply walk into Mordor. So yeah, for you Lord of the Ring fans there, I hope that's a nice reference. But yeah, that's kind of it for indefinite pronouns for today at least. Let's have a look at the final slide now. So this is a bit of a tricky one to explain. But the thing is with interrogative pronouns is that basically we're just kind of using them to ask a question would be the easiest way to look at it. So, if once again my cell phone was stolen, I'm starting to sound like a victim, but if my cell phone was stolen, I might say, who stole my cell phone? Because I don't know who did it, I want to find out. Or we might ask someone, which day did you attend the event? Or I might say, what is your favorite perfume? I want to buy a perfume for Mother's Day, for example. So pretty much we're using who, which, what, all of these types of pronouns pretty much just to ask a question. So that's the best way to look at it. So yeah, there's lots of different types of pronouns and they can get a bit confusing, but if you just try to think about them in these kind of simple ways that we talked about, hopefully that will help you out in the future. So anyhow, thank you for checking out today's video. I hope it did, be a little bit useful for you. Make sure to check out some of the other grammar workshop videos. We have quite a few different ones. I've got a couple of other ones myself. And yeah, the teachers presenting them have put a lot of research and effort into them. So hopefully they'll all prove to be useful for you. Thank you for watching the video. I hope to see you maybe in one of my classes sometime soon. And yeah, I look forward to hearing you using pronouns. So thanks once again, and catch you later.